Playoffs? Don't talk about it. Playoffs? You kidding me? Playoffs?
We enter the first weekend of the state playoffs, technically, the district semifinals. And Drew, we start off with the number 1 seed, North Penn in Quad A, playing this week against Downingtown West. The Knights, pretty impressive last week against Abington. Can you talk about what they expect going forward here? They're the favorites, obviously.
Well, with the role that Ronnie Akins has been on, Kev, he's scoring 3, 4, 5 touchdowns a game. He's uncoverable in the secondary. I see him in college as a wide receiver. He's just a notch or two above, anybody, he's playing against. And they also add in Tyler Smith in the backfield, who you can't forget about him. The kid's averaging, 7, 8 yards a carry. These teams in the playoffs have been giving North Penn games for a half.
Right.
Maybe 2.5 quarters. But then they just get worn down because there are so many weapons on North Penn that, eventually, the dam bursts and then they score and the defense can't be overlooked.
One thing that with North Penn's speed that I think is going to be interesting is the fact that as we film this on Tuesday night, the game is still going to be held at North Penn's Crawford Stadium. It could, in theory, be moved if the weather turns inclement like it did last week to an artificial surface. Coaches I've talked to have said that North Penn, with their speed, is much more dangerous on the artificial turf than they are on the natural grass.
The North Penn coach, Dick Beck, admitted that.
Right.
You put his team on turf, they become even faster.
All right, prediction time here. North Penn, Downingtown West, who do you like?
How do you go against North Penn, Kev? 34-12 North Penn, and they make it back to the district final.
Yeah, I'm going somewhere like 28-14, somewhere in like that. I don't think it'll even be that close. I could see a garbage time touchdown for Downingtown West. Now kind of flip it over to Neshaminy. They head to Garnet Valley this week. They'll take the long trip down I-95 to Delaware County. Garnet Valley, undefeated, number 2 seed in this tournament. Neshaminy, winners of 11 in a row, 11-1. And Drew, it's really, to me, it's the same type team playing one another. Good running games, lots of good defense on both sides.
I'm a huge psychological guy as far as with these high school games. And you look at Garnet Valley's season, so much surrounded with how would they do against Ridley when they played Ridley. That was their obstacle. And they beat them, I think it's like 41-28 in that neighborhood. Huge win for them, for that program moving up from AAA to Quad A. Well, kids, they turn around and they see what Chamonix does to Ridley, 31-3.
Right.
And they got to be thinking, oh my gosh, okay, this is what are we getting into? I know they're undefeated, but Ridley is the neighbor they know, and they beat them.
Right.
The dragon they slayed. Well, now comes the Chamonix with a really good history, obviously, coming down there. I like Neshaminy in this one.
Here's the thing. One, I think Garnet Valley's main running back, Tim Kaiser, is still not totally healthy. He played last week against Fensbury, had about 85 yards rushing, did not look like he had the burst that everybody from Garnet Valley has said that he's had all year. So Kaiser's injury status, I think, is a big thing in this game.
He has another week to...
It's another week, but it's also another week in colder weather, which if you have a knee injury, we all know how tough it is once you get especially older.
Right.
The knees tend not to get as loose.
He's a 17-year-old kid.
Yes.
Okay.
But if you have a knee injury, it's a big problem.
Yes, indeed.
I think Garnet Valley probably should have lost that game to Pennsbury last week. Pennsbury committed some errors, some turnovers early in the game, had some penalties. And that kind of...
I remember what you telling me, that they were hanging on at the end.
Hanging on at the end, kind of one of those things, a 2-point conversion, falls about that short. Otherwise, it's a tie game and we go to overtime.
Now in overtime, if you score, is the game over, or how does that work? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Donovan on that one.
I could not let that one go.
So, yeah.
Okay, I'm taking the low road.
Yeah, you are. When you look at it, though, give me a score, Neshaminy, Ridley. Are we looking at Neshaminy, North Penn next week?
I think we are. I remember talking to Neshaminy coach Mark Schmidt after the Hatboro game. They were coming off the loss, their only loss, season opening loss to Souderton by a point. Against Hatboro, they were a little shaky, and I talked to him, and I said, Coach, what do you think? And he said, give us a little bit of time, and we're going to be pretty good. Well, he was right. I call this one, I say 28-14, Neshaminy, the way their defense is playing and the way, like you said, with their ground game going, I think they win it by 2 touchdowns.
I honestly think this could be a game in the 14-0 range. And one of those 14-0 never in doubt kind of games.
Mm-hmm.
If Neshaminy especially breaks out early, the team that scores first here is going to have a huge advantage.
And then that would put us with
Neshaminy,
Neshaminy and North Penn one more time, and then we can have the arguments all over.
It's been. We now move to AAA, and Archbishop Wood will have this week off as part of a bye after winning the District 12 championship. The Vikings, kind of a strange schedule scenario where they're not going to play, until next week, and they'll play the winner of Upper Moreland and Banyan Ruston. And when you look at it, Drew, Ruston has a tremendous defense.
Mm-hmm.
Upper Moreland, a pretty good offense. What gives here?
Well, Kev, the fact that Upper Moreland beat them in overtime early in the season has to give them a slight edge. They're at home. I saw Upper Moreland last week. They have tremendous confidence. Their defense, too, gets overlooked. They've got some studs on that defense that do some hitting. Chris Smallwood aside, who that kid is a phenomenal runner.
Mm-hmm.
They went up against an Owen J. Roberts team that had a 2,000-yard rusher. He was only a sophomore, a kid named Ryan Brumfield. They held him to less than 30 yards. They just absolutely took the kid out of the game. I think Upper Moreland, with the way they're going, they're going to be an awfully tough out.
See, the thing is with Upper Moreland that I want to see how they do outside of just running the football. I
think they can throw it just enough.
Well, but in this game they're going to have to throw.
Right. I think they can throw it just enough to keep you honest, and that's at this playoff level when you have an elite back like they have in Smallwood, if you can throw it a little, then you open up a lot of different things.
Because Ruston's defense is good enough to take that elite back away.
Sure.
So you're really trying to play a shell game here, and how do you match up against, and finding other ways to win? That's what a lot of this playoff experience is about, finding other ways to win as the season goes along. Does Upper Moreland have enough?
I think they do. And we talk about taking Smallwood out of the game. He reminds me, and I'm talking high school level here, of like a player like Kevin Jones back at O'Hara.
Wow, that's pretty.
It is. I know it is, but he'll run.
You'll think, oh boy, they stopped him, and then all of a sudden you look up and he picked up 4 or 5 yards. It's just like Kevin Jones used to do.
Mm-hmm. I don't see it happening. I think Ruston wins this game 10-7.
Oh, okay, Kev. I will politely disagree. No, I won't be polite. I think you're wrong. I say Upper Moreland wins it 23-12. In Double A, in District 11, we have Palisades playing West Catholic from the Philadelphia Catholic League in a first-round state game. West Catholic is very highly rated in the state. Palisades, on the other hand, I had them losing 2 weeks ago to Pine Grove, and they go and beat them. Last week, they play Palmerton, a team they're familiar with from the Colonial League. They beat them again for the 4th straight time. Now they play a West Catholic team that is, that did a number on Wood, a Double A team that goes against a Triple A team.
Who is the state favorite? You would have to think right now in Double A. And they are the favorite probably in the state to win Double A. They are as complete a team as has come out of the Catholic League in about 10 years.
I could see it like a 27-13.
I'm going 35-14, and I'll tell you the one advantage that Palisades I think has Brian Gilbert over Brian Fluck in the coaching department. I think Gilbert is a really good coach.
I agree.
Fluck at times, if you look back to those games against Wood, there are some questions about his in-game strategy. Next week, we'll have our Thanksgiving Day edition. We'll preview the games that will take place on Turkey Day, plus the remainder of the playoff schedule. We'll see who's still alive. We think we're going to have a few left. So for Drew Markol, I'm Kevin Cooney. Thanks for joining us. Have yourself a good weekend. We'll talk to you next week.